All right, Jenny.
All right, so it is 1 o'clock. So I would like to say good afternoon to everybody and welcome to Copyright Confident. I'd like to say good afternoon to everybody and welcome to Copyright Confident. Today we are going to be talking about copyright law and guidelines and where you can get materials for your courses so you can stay out of copyright trouble. With me here today, I'm Jody Canal. I'm the Division Chief of Information Systems and Technical Services here at Air University Library. I have Jessica Everingham, and she is one of our school liaisons, and so she will be speaking later. And I have Major Elsie Lusch. She's from Air University Legal Office, and she's gonna be adding her expertise to the conversation as well. Not present today is Mrs. Megan Bleal. She is one of our curriculum support team members, and she deals with copyright every day and has to navigate it. And while she could not be here today, she was kind enough to record her portion of the slides for us. So we're going to go ahead and navigate to the first slide and start the recording.
We need to go to the objectives.
Okay, we're sharing the slides. Okay.
Oh, can you go? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay, and there are our course objectives. So we're going to try to go over our copyright overview. We're going to cover infringement and penalties. We're going to cover copyright compliance and where you can get materials, including library databases, copyright categories, copyright clearance center, and fair use, and educational exceptions. And at the end, we're gonna take questions, so please table your questions until the end. Thank you.
Yes. I'll play that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the copyright overview portion of Copyright Confident Workshop. I'm very happy to be here with you today. My name is Megan. I'm a member of the curriculum support team here at Air University Library. First, a little background information on me. I have earned several degrees, including a master's degree.
My bad.
And I am currently exploring PhD programs. Before coming to work for the DAF, I worked as a graduate tutor at writing centers and academic libraries and have taught English courses at university. I have also been working for the DAF and specializing in editorial and curriculum support, copyright law, and copyright education since 2020. That being said, I am not a lawyer. The information presented in this brief is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be construed as legal advice. Matters of law are subject to interpretation, and AUJA is the source of its
Sorry about that.
authoritative information for Air University. If you have specific legal questions, please contact AUJA or your local JAG office. All slides in this section that reference the law, law codes, AFIs, AUIs, and information from our JAG office are noted as such. It is my hope that when this copyright overview is over, you will have a better understanding of copyright, federal and copyright law, Air Force, and Air University policy, and how to apply these concepts to your course. Please save all questions.
Thanks, Nikki.
Send me your questions via email or Teams chat. All right, let's get started. Okay, first up, copyright basics. So what exactly is copyright? Copyright is a form of protection grounded in the U.S. Constitution and granted by law for original works of authorship fixed in a tangible medium of expression. Copyright covers both published and unpublished works. So what does copyright protect? Copyright, a form of intellectual property law, protects original works of authorship, including literary, dramatic, musical, and artistic works such as poetry, novels, movies, songs, computer software, and architecture. Copyright does not protect facts, ideas, systems, or methods of operation, although it may protect the way these things are expressed. If you would like to know more about the information on this slide, we recommend Circular 1, Copyright Basics, and Copyright in General from the U.S. Copyright Office.
Okay.
The Copyright Act generally provides copyright holders the exclusive right to control, reproduction, distribution, performance, or display of their works, depending upon the medium in which the work is created. Copyright holders may license the use of their copyrighted material with or without a fee. The unauthorized use of copyrighted material is an infringement of the copyright holder's protected rights. See U.S. Code Title 17, Section 106 for more details. So, why is copyright important? Simply put, copyright gives creators exclusive rights which protect ownership of their work. Copyright allows creators to distribute their work, ensure they receive payment for their product, protects against plagiarism or theft, alter their work, or pursue legal action in the case of copyright infringement. So if the work is 100% original, copyright permission is not needed. If the material is someone else's original work, including copyrighted third-party material, then permission is always needed. As government employees, we respect the law, intellectual property rights, and are committed to fulfilling our moral and legal obligations with respect to the use of copyright-protected works.
Slide.
Per Air Force Instruction 51303 Intellectual Property, it is Air Force policy to recognize copyright protections, avoid unauthorized use of copyrighted material, and secure permissions to use copyrighted material where such permission is required. The Air Force recognizes private rights in copyrighted works, uses, and acquires rights in these works consistent with applicable laws, regulations, and established policies. Air Force activities and personnel acting within the scope of their official duties will respect copyright and acknowledge the owner's copyrighted material when used in Air Force publications or other officially released material, avoid using copyrighted material without first obtaining permission from the copyright owner, avoid condoning, facilitating use by Air Force facilities of public performance or unauthorized reproduction of copyrighted sound or video recordings as prescribed by DODD 5535.4, copyrighted sound and video recordings. Examples of activities that may constitute a public performance include showing all or part of a motion picture, reciting or acting out a play or literary work, playing a musical recording, or uploading a sound or video recording to a website. Air Force activities that engage in such activities are encouraged to seek guidance from their servicing legal office as needed. Now, let's review some key points on intellectual property in our Air University Instruction 36-2602. Per the AUI, intellectual property relates to creations of the mind, including scholarly works, inventions, and other creative works, whether distributed electronically, orally, written, or by other methods. Air University respects the intellectual property rights of others, including the law and governing DoD and Air Force policies. The AUI also states that center commanders and school commandants are responsible for ensuring that their programs conform to the policies and standards for proper use of intellectual property. The AUI also covers intellectual products. It is an essential characteristic of an institution of higher learning to encourage faculty and students to engage in scholarship that leads to the development of intellectual products. Air University seeks to protect the intellectual property rights of faculty, students, and staff. However, AFI 51303 intellectual property, individuals may not copyright or profit from materials developed using Air Force resources. Such materials are the property of the United States government. Though Section 544 of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020 provides for an exception to 17 U.S.C. Section 105, granting copyright to a covered work to a covered civilian faculty author, subject to the authority of the Secretary of Defense to direct the author to provide a free license. Please note, the AUI is currently being updated. Section 4741 is included in the May draft.
If you are working on something and have a question about, I guess if you're allowed to receive money for it, you can't basically double dip and get money from your official work capacity and your private capacity on the side. So just be cognizant of that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to our office for some ethics guidance.
addition to concerns about data protection and confidentiality, the fear of copyright infringement is the second major obstacle for many when using AI. The AUI has been updated to cover the use of generative artificial intelligence, or Gen AI. The use of Gen AI tools requires upholding intellectual property rights and maintaining confidentiality. When utilizing Gen AI tools, research and identify which generative AI tools send data back to commercial or government entities and which do not before uploading data to these tools. Proper attribution and citation are mandatory when incorporating AI-generated content based on or inspired by the works of others. Treat AI-generated content with the same rigor and traditional resources, ensuring that all contributors receive credit for their work. Do not submit copyrighted material or any content that is not legally authorized for distribution into AI tools. Compliance with AU's policy and ethical standards is mandatory when using Gen AI tools. Please note, the AUI is currently being updated. Section 4733 and 4734 are included in the May draft.
I would just say, like, with all areas of technology, the technology always progresses faster than the law. So expect for this area of the law to catch up to AI. And we're trying our best to navigate kind of what the do's and don'ts are with regard to AI. There's always kind of a lag between what the courts and what the law is able to say about new technology and what the new technology is able to do. So please let us know if you have any questions about AI and copyright.
Thank you.
Finally, the AUI also covers copyright considerations in Gen AI use. All Area University personnel must be mindful of copyright laws and intellectual property rights when using Gen AI tools. This is particularly important when Gen AI is used to generate content that may be based on or derived from existing copyrighted materials. Users must ensure that any input provided to Gen AI tools does not violate copyright laws. Content generated by AI should be carefully reviewed to avoid unintentional plagiarism or copyright infringement. When using AI-generated content in academic or professional work, proper attribution should be given to both the AI tool used and to any original sources that may have informed the AI's output. Faculty and students should be aware that while AI-generated content may be original in its composition, it may still be derived from copyrighted works and thus subject to fair use considerations. In cases of uncertainty regarding the copyright status of AI-generated content, users should consult with the university's legal counsel or copyright experts. Please note, the information on this slide is included in the AUI May draft. If you are interested in copyright and AI, on 29 January 2025, the U.S. Copyright Office released Part 2 of its report on the legal and policy issues related to copyright and AI. You can find this at copyright.gov.
Mr. Roach, did you want to add anything to that?
I want to emphasize with AI, there are clear times when you can't use copyrighted material in AI when the license says like, hey, we can't use this for AI. And then there are clear times when you can use it for AI or you can use it in AI under certain circumstances or certain conditions. There's a huge gray area in the middle. So if you have any questions, please ask. And I would say it's always better to err on the side of, if I'm unsure, don't do it versus risk doing it improperly and getting us in trouble.
Thank you.
All right, so we've just got a couple more slides that we're gonna get to, and Major Luch may have more to add at the end of these slides also.
Now let's cover copyright infringement and penalties courtesy of AUJA. Copyright infringement occurs when a copyrighted work is reproduced, distributed, performed, publicly displayed, or made into a derivative work without the permission of the copyright owner. U.S. statutes and Air Force instruction prohibit unauthorized distribution or reproduction of protected material without permission or license. Copyright infringement can result in significant penalties for the government. When a government employee infringes a copyright while carrying out his or her duties as a government employee, the copyright holder can bring in action against the employee and the government for damages. Liability will be at least the license fee that should have been paid. The government may be also liable for attorney's fees and damage claims. Violations may open the government up to litigation and increased costs. This would also include the Air Force and Department of Justice personnel costs for litigation. Actions may be the basis for employee disciplinary action. Accreditation can be affected. And for willful infringement, a court may award up to $150,000 per work infringed. A court can also assess costs and attorney's fees. See Title 17 U.S.C. Sections 504 and 505. Further, willful infringement may also result in criminal penalties, including imprisonment of up to 10 years and fines of up to $250,000 per offense.
Do you want to add anything?
I would just echo that, being involved in litigation is not a quick or easy or fun process to go through. So just caution against, even if you're in the gray zone, not using something that potentially could lead to copyright litigation, because it is not fun if you've ever had to experience going through the discovery process and answering subpoenas and all of that. It can be quite lengthy. Even if you are successful, it's still going to cost the government a lot of money and time.
So don't do it. Next, please.
Let's go over some copyright infringement penalties and examples. Earlier this year, copyrighted articles and handouts were linked to an AFNC website. This was caught before financial penalty and removed from the website. In 2024, a faculty member uploaded material for student use without clearance, and this included AU Library Database PDFs. We had to alert AU Library and school leadership and correct the course director's error. Material was removed from the platforms. AU Library leadership also had to contact our vendors to alert them of the violation. Our vendors were happy with our actions and graciously did not charge us for the violations this time. In 2020, copyright infringement of one photograph resulted in $6,000 fees paid to the rights holders. These fees do not include additional cost penalties or litigation. In 2010, a faculty member wanted to use a chapter of a book he co-authored. This turned out that the course director did not retain the copyright or distribution rights from the publisher. This was caught before financial penalty. 2009 to present, faculty use personally owned videos for their courses. This is an ongoing issue. Only videos purchased with government funds, available at AUL, AU Press, AU TV, freely available web services, or videos with purchase licenses can be used in classrooms. Our final example illustrates the result and penalties when relying on fair use. An investigation and audit found many cases of copyright infringement based on fair use. This resulted in $85,000 fees paid to the rights holders. Again, this fee does not include additional costs or penalties.
Just like, I know there's been a lot of questions about fair use, which we'll get to later. But I think the 2008 example illustrates the risk involved with relying on fair use to use copyrighted materials.
Next.
Like,
Go ahead.
Finally, a good rule of thumb.
a good rule of thumb is going in, just assume everything's copyrighted and you can't use it, and work backwards from there and see if there's a way for you to use it lawfully. So there are certain areas where maybe a little bit more risk we'd be okay with. Here is just not one of those areas. We're definitely want to be conservative with not using copyrighted material for a purpose that we're not allowed to. And if you think about it, the first slide talked about copyright being the ownership to the materials. So this is somebody's livelihood, kind of their personal property that you're now using without their permission, and what are the impacts of that?
Thank you.
Okay, and so now, Jessica is going to talk about the ways to work backwards and where you can find materials for your courses so that you can stay out of copyright trouble.
Thank you. So now I'll take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about myself. I've spent probably a couple of decades now in libraries, academic, state, and now specialized academic. The first part of my career as an academic library director, I got to become friends with a lot of instructors who weren't observing fair use correctly. So I can't stress that enough. You know, be smart about the whole fair use issue. And like Major Luch says, go into it conservatively, because it can really get you in trouble if you don't pay attention to the details. So with that being said, let's go to the next slide, please, sir. All right, so as someone who's prior service, I believe in the Bluff method. And here what we've done, we want to show you all just the high level basics of copyright that we think are most important. First of all, part of the definition of copyright means the creator, not the user, but the creator has legal protection. And that's important to realize when you're building your syllabi and things like that, to always think, it's hard though, because you find a link, a Google link, and you think it's great, but you have to think about the creator of that link, of that content. And then it goes without saying, we don't have the right to copy work without permission, but sometimes we forget that, right? And we might link to something we shouldn't have linked to. You know, I think it's worth reiterating that every so often, and that's one reason why I'm here today. And then here's a big news alert. Librarians aren't attorneys, at least here. So I wanted to go to law school, but now that I've gotten to know you, I don't know about that. So thankfully, we do have attorney help here on base, and a lot of the smaller academic institutions, they just don't, and they kind of wing it. But we don't have to wing it here. We can actually follow strong practices. And then here's an even bigger shot. Copyright can be complex, isn't it though? Like even 20 years ago, it was complex. And I think with the onslaught of AI, it's gotten even worse. So, and one thing that we do really, really well here in the library, we provide guidelines, which the slide deck can be considered a guideline. And we also provide tools for you all to use when you're building your syllabi and resources for your instructors. And so some of the tools could be the card catalog that we have online. It could be the databases that we subscribe to, or it could be the licensing and copyright clearance center. So there's a whole gamut of resources that you have at your fingertips that you can use. So with the last sentence, and then I'll ask Major Luch if she wants to say anything. So the main thing that jumped out at me, obviously, is the legal opinion that's in bold. And I want to leave you with fair use itself is not a bad word, it's just a complicated word. So do you want to?
Yeah, I would just say we're about to walk through some really awesome resources that
Yeah.
are available to everyone. So I would say exhaust those resources, use those resources, and then we don't even have to worry about getting into questions of fair use. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but at the end of the day, only a federal court can truly determine what is fair use and what is not fair use. So if we're discussing it, we're already thinking in terms of litigation, which is not where we want to be with this stuff. Especially when there's so many other resources available that can just save us the headache in the end.
Thank you. All right, so now on to all the resources that we have. So you all know that we subscribe to databases, right? I think we subscribe to some of the best in the world, quite honestly. And we provide you all, faculty, provide you all with thousands upon thousands of resources to use. So use them. You know, those resources should be one of your first steps that you take when you're looking for content for your courses. And then we're going to go over later on probably 3 or 4 different examples that I have. I have to put my readers on, sorry. Oh, I missed something here. So the big takeaway on this slide is permalinks versus downloading PDFs. I forgot to mention that, and that's a critical thing. So permalinks are a good thing. You always want permalinks, and you never ever want to download or upload or any of that PDFs to Canvas. That's a big no-no. Justin, do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, fundamentally, it's back to the fundamentals of copyright. We do not have permission to copy someone else's work. And when we download a PDF and upload that to Canvas, That's what we're doing, and that's a copyright violation. The alternative, the safe way, easy way, is to take a link, a permalink, a stable URL, which we'll have some examples of, and put that in Canvas. That is absolutely allowed and permitted because you're providing a link, a way for your students to access this legally, and you're in the clear, they're in the clear.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
To use a permalink, do you need to log into the library and then use the permalink, or does the permalink just take you there?
The permalink, if you're using the card catalog, you can send that permalink to yourself, and we're gonna look at that. We have that as an example. So later on in the presentation. All right, so there are lots of different words for permalinks. All of this pretty much means the same thing. So every database does it a little bit differently. And so you want to look, like in our catalog, we use the word permalink. But in all these other databases like EBSCOhost, they recently changed theirs. It used to be permalink, now it's link. It's all the same thing. ProQuest, they use durable URL. And then JSTOR uses something very different to me. They use DOI and stable URL. So this content the slide deck will be sent out to everyone online and face-to-face, so you don't have to worry about jotting notes or whatever. So next, please. All right, here are our first two examples. So EBSCOhost, one of our most popular databases that we run here. Every database also has, it's usually somewhere near the top of the article that you're looking at. There's a way that you can click on either an arrow or a button or something like that, and you can export the citation information directly to yourself, or you can even export it to citation management tools as well. I don't know if the folks online can see this or not, but for both the EBSCO and the ProQuest, you always want to look at the URL, the details in the URL. If you don't see OFRIC and .oclc, that might be an issue. So the reason why it might be an issue if you do not see it, that means that it potentially was not legally acquired. If you see this, OFRIC.oclc, that means it's been legally acquired, you're good to go to use the resource, you don't have to worry about any of that. And so this is a good example why not to use stuff that you find on Google all the time. You always want to look at the details in the URL. Okay, so ProQuest, they do it a little bit differently as well. That's hard to see, but it says copy URL. And it's the exact same thing as EBSCO. So you can export it to yourself and not worry about the link not working or not being legal. It is legal that way. Okay, next please. All right, here's JSTOR. So here you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but on the left, that's the DOI link. And then on the right, it's the stable link. Now this one is a little bit different because it doesn't say OFRIC, it doesn't say OCLC. And the DOI is established by the vendor, I believe, to indicate that article is tied to that particular database. For me, my personal experience is I always look for the word stable in JSTOR URLs. And if I find that, then I'm usually okay, I think, with using that article. And then here's the example from our card catalog. So this goes back to your question, sir, about permalinks in the catalog. So you bring up your item. Every single item in the catalog has a permalink available to it. Doesn't matter what it is in the catalog. And you go to the send to section, and then you click here on the permalink. And so this is a big deal. I don't know if you can see online either, but you always want to click on copy the permalink, because if you don't do that, the link won't work at all. Did I just break it? Oh, okay, I'll stay away from it. So the key to that one, oh, you're fine. The key to that one is always click on copy the permalink at the bottom, because links won't work if you don't do that. Did that answer your question?
Well, my other question would be, so if the student, essentially, if we put the permalink into the course and then the student clicks on the permalink, are they then going to have to log into the library at that point, or is it just going to bring them right to the permalink?
No, they'll likely have to log on to the database. That's where the Schoolhouse usernames and passwords come into play. So that's a big deal. Did you wanna?
When they click on that permalink, what it's gonna do is gonna take them to the site, but our proxy service is going to come up and it's gonna prompt the student for a username and password. And instructors should all get those at the beginning of the course. Student can just put that username and password in, and then it'll take them directly to the item after that. So they're not gonna have to try to find the item within the database, but they are gonna be prompted for their username and password. That's the way that the vendor knows that we have paid for access to that item. And without that, they're not gonna be able to get through that paywall. Right.
Okay. Next, okay. All right, Creative Commons. Everyone, I think, has a sampling of an idea of what this is. It's another form of copyright. It's a little bit looser, I guess you could say, than the old-fashioned copyright. And there are probably 5 or 6 different types of licenses you can look at when it comes to Creative Commons. This one, the one that's on the screen now, that's probably the most common that we'll see in our research. And this is a good thing. If you see this is a good sign. The only thing you have to do is give credit to the author, and you can use the resource pretty much however you want to. So this is Creative Commons resources are free, generally speaking, 98% of the time, I would say. So that's something that you can look into a little bit more, and I feel like it's probably going to be something that we're going to explore a little bit more ourselves as a team on how to use and how to find them. So the other thing I wanted to mention about Creative Commons is that it also, when we first talked about copyright, I talked about how the copyright protects the creators. This still does the same thing, but it loosens up the harshness of the original copyright laws. So if you see Creative Commons, it's a good thing, use it. Next, please. All right, so this took me, Justin probably had to spend 15, 20 minutes explaining this to me, but we have access to a gazillion different types of government resources to use in our courses. So this example is one to show you that some of the government resources that we have access to, you still have to pay attention to the terms of use, you still have to pay attention to the privacy statements. At the end of the day, it's all about the details for everything dealing with copyright and fair use. So this one, so Army University Press, for example, they clearly state, well, it's not clear, but they say that the content is considered public. So before you start using these links, you need to look at those details, because what you don't want to happen is for you to be in your course and someone contacts you, hey, I think you're violating my copyright, or just be smart about it. And then the other example I wanted to share with you all. So Library of Congress, we all kind of think that, oh, it's the federal government, everything's free. It's not. So you still have to go look at the terms of use. So some of the movies, perhaps, some of the photographs, perhaps, it varies. They might still have copyright attached to them, even though they're being shown on the Library of Congress's website. And this is also known as public domain. You all have heard of the phrase public domain. That's where it all comes in together.
Can I?
Sure.
So when we're talking about government sources, if something is published by the government, the government does not copyright their materials. So if you're getting something that was published by Air University Press, or like the Navy Press, or the Army Corps of Engineers Press, anything that's published by government publishers, those are free. But what Jess is pointing out is, just because you find it on a government site does not mean that it's been published by the government. So you need to be careful just because you go to Army University Press's website or Air University Press website, you have to make sure that the item that you're selecting has been published by that organization, and they're not just sharing a link to something that they do not own the content for.
Well said. Next. All right, so I don't know about my other colleagues here, the liaisons that are with us, but I have gotten a ton of YouTube questions over the past couple of weeks. Faculty love YouTube videos. I do too, however, you need to be careful, absolutely be careful with YouTube, because you don't know, if you can't answer, is the resource authorized? You shouldn't even be thinking about it. And just because, so let's say I have a channel on YouTube, and I put a link to a news broadcast, and you want to use it, sir, in the flight suit, and who's to say that it's authorized? How would you find out?
Well, my first question would be, and this is in general,
Yeah,
my understanding is that there's, and I'm not the expert in this, actually, he is more so, but my understanding is that when you post things on YouTube, there's a YouTube user agreement. So when you do post things there, you're basically putting it out there for people to see and then utilize. So that would be like where I would operate from, just as like an amateur in all this.
yeah,
That's how I would go. I go, okay, is this covered underneath that? That'd be the first question I'd ask.
that's fair. You know, I would probably do something similar. Are there any comments online about that?
Not about YouTube.
Okay, great.
Is that understanding correct? There's the
Yeah.
there's the follow-on for me.
Yeah. Well, you also have to be careful, like, let's say you find a video that you like, let's say it's some training video that you like, some, Simon Sinek thing that you're
Sure.
like, this is great, I think this is great. And you see the Simon Sinek thing and you find it on Jessica Evringham's YouTube page.
I don't have one, by the way.
But if you find it on somewhere other than Simon Sinek's YouTube page, that site probably doesn't have the authorization to share that.
Okay.
So even though they may have agreed to that YouTube agreement and said, yeah, we're happy to share stuff, that does not mean that they have the authority to share that. And not only do they not have authority and can get us in a lot of trouble with copyright, you may not even find, YouTube is constantly looking for materials on the site that someone is sharing that doesn't belong to them. And if, like, I love watching Bill Maher, and I'll go on, like, Saturday morning, and there are a number of people who will record it and put it on to YouTube. Now, by Sunday or Monday, those will all be gone, because whoever owns Bill Maher's rights, they're going through and finding who has used posted their stuff illegally and scrub those. So if you think that you're gonna share a YouTube video that's content doesn't belong to that person, it may or may not even be there when you go to share that link. But ultimately, if you are successful in sharing that link, then you're violating copyright, because Bill Maher didn't actually agree to let you watch that whole thing. And he's not getting credit for the clicks on that site, because that's not his site. And so he wants that down as soon as possible. So you have to be very careful the source of those YouTubes, even though they may have agreed to that YouTube agreement.
And I would just say, going in with the assumption that everything is copyrighted and then figuring out if there's a way for you to use it from there. So my understanding with YouTube is there's a way to like filter for things that are in the Creative Commons, which will help you stay out of trouble for using things that aren't available to use.
Right.
And then, just being careful of that secondhand copyright violations where you're taking something that if somebody violated the copyright law by uploading something without permission, and then you then use that, you're still in violation of the copyright laws, even though you weren't the one who initially copied it illegally.
Thank you.
Using a copy of a copy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost as bad as like secondhand smoke. That's what I think of when I think of using second layers of YouTube video. So the moral of that story is please just be careful. Be careful with all of this, but be particularly careful when you're considering the use of YouTube videos, please.
And Major Uch is correct. You can filter, you can go when you're doing a search for videos, you can filter for Creative Commons licenses. And if they have those Creative Commons license agreements, you are probably safe.
It's very easy to do on the main screen of YouTube. On the top right side, I just did it the other day. Top right side, you have all these things you can filter by and just select Creative Commons. Then the other thing I wanted to share real quickly.
Real quick, a question in the, but providing just a URL, a YouTube link should be okay, correct? Not downloading the YouTube video and taking a still image or a few seconds of a clip and uploading that to Canvas for a few seconds.
Yeah,
Right, and that's,
still be careful.
right, and the second part of that is, again, the copying part. So, yeah,
Yeah.
posting a link, sure, but taking a still and, from that, and, or a clip of that and uploading that, that's making a copy, which we don't have the rights to do.
Right.
So, put a link in there with a timestamp if you're looking to show a
Okay.
particular thing. But, making a copy of a still or making a copy of a clip of a YouTube video, yeah, that, again, we're in the same boat.
What about showing a video? Let's say you're doing a presentation, you got a group of, ROTC students or OTS students, and you wanna show a clip from a video. So, you're not posting it, you're not distributing it, you're just showing that. Can you help us with guidance?
We'll have an example of that at the end.
Say generally, yes, that's okay, to share in the classroom. Where it gets a little bit tricky is, how did you initially get access to that information? So I think we had one of the examples earlier was somebody had used a personally procured video in class that created problems.
Yeah.
Are you showing a copy of a copy? That's gonna be a problem. And are you sharing it online? So that might be a harder issue for GC, PME, where you're maybe like posting online to a bunch of students is probably not going to be okay versus our in-residence classes where you're sharing live with students.
Very helpful, thank you.
And then- sorry.
One other question in the chat to interrupt. What guidance can you offer about creating Creative Commons materials for use in Air University and as Air Force or federal employees? Half of that question is any materials made by federal employees in their, as a part of their regular duties, is property of the government.
Right.
So one could not create a license for that. That would be making that more restrictive.
Now, I have created, in a previous life, created a couple of documents that, I was in state government at that time, and we added Creative Commons license to it. So if you ever need help with that, come see me, I'll help you with that. But to Justin's point, we're government employees, so it's government work. So, the last thing I wanted to share with you from this slide, Divids is a resource to use. Use it. Earlier we talked a little bit about public domain, and you can see in the bottom right corner of that box where the big red arrow is. That's where you always want. This is a photograph. The information is probably located in different spots on Divids, but you always want to look for a public domain, and then you always want to look. It's really hard to see the copyright and see where the line through it. That means, oh, perfect. That means that it is available for public domain and for you to use. So I have used resources from Divids before, and I still try to give credit though. That's the right thing to do. Always give credit. Even when you don't have to give credit, give credit. Okay, next please. All right, so on to Copyright Clearance Center. So this is probably almost as important as the databases are to the faculty. So Air University has stepped up and subscribed to this for the following school: Air War College, ACSC, SOS, and I believe GCPME. And then also, my understanding is by the end of September, we should be able to open that up to more schools on campus. They have realized the importance of copyright compliance and staying away from infringement. So they're all about giving you guys the tools to be successful professors and instructors. Let me make sure I have everything I wanted to share with that one.
And you said by the end of September, the rest of the.
Yes, ma'am, September 30th.
And that'll be for all of Air University and not just the schools.
Okay, good.
Are you gonna talk about what that specifically is and does?
Yep. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so, first of all, let's talk about registering for, I'm gonna call it Triple C. For Triple C, you wanna go to the Right Find /academic link. That's not real helpful right now. So if you wanna go to rightfind.copyright.com, that's the direct URL. You wanna register. You have to log on in order to see the copyright licensing period. That's a requirement. So you're gonna register with your airforce.mil email. Do that first before you do it, as soon as you get back to the office.
What was that again? I'm sorry.
It is rightfind.copyright.com. So that URL will take you exactly to what this is talking about. And the steps on this slide, just a very basic search tips on how to find articles and periodicals and books. It's the same concept as in a catalog, a library catalog. It's really no different. You can do simple stuff, you can do more complicated stuff, it all varies. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so this is really simple. Green is good, red is bad. You know, if you're going to, so this is foreign affairs, and it doesn't have a green circle with a white check, but it does have a green circle. So the green circle with the white check, that means you're good to go, you're white, you don't have to cite anything, you don't have to get a license, because we've already bought that license for y'all to use that resource, so you're fine. If you see a green circle with the, I call it the BAM mark, the exclamation mark in it, that means there are special terms attached to that record. Of course, if you see the red circle with the line through it, we don't have it. It really is that simple. Okay, so can you make that bigger?
What part of it?
This side, where the summary is. Yeah. So this is, and we're gonna look at this a little bit more on the next slide. Oh, perfect. Yeah, good. So this is important because this tells you exactly what you can do. So just because you're in class and you want to use a resource, doesn't mean you can always. You have to pay attention to their special terms. And that's what this section kind of is a little bit. It tells you their definition of digital sharing, not ours, but theirs. And that's what we have to follow. Because if we don't follow it, we'll get in trouble. Okay, could we go to the next slide, please? All right. So the previous slide, we had the three circles, green is good, red is bad. The middle circle was the exclamation point. Can you make this bigger?
This one.
Oh, I touched it again, I'm sorry.
Good. Is that good?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so the exclamation point, those are the special terms attached to that record. And so if you see that exclamation point, that means, hey, alert, pay attention, because that's going to tell you exactly what you can and can't do. I didn't know this about foreign affairs, but apparently they've got some pretty strict rules about using photographs, and you have to black them out before you use the resource. I didn't know that until this. So every single resource in Triple C will have some type of terms or definitions, so you are better prepared to make your decisions. It's all about risk analysis. You know, it just is.
I think this is like just a really good example of how, in this area, so much of our answer is going to be, it depends. It depends on the specific permissions allowed, the specific licenses, the specific terms. So it's really hard to give a blanket, like yes, no answer.
Right.
Everything's going to be really factored in. And I think this is one of those things that shows like photographs. Who would ever think that that's something we have to watch out for?
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah. All right, next slide, please. All right, so my time is almost up with you all. I want to wrap up what we talked about. We talked about how they use a bunch of different words for the same thing. Permalinks have all sorts of different words attached to them. We talked about using Jody talked about very eloquently about how to use government resources smartly. And we talked about dividends and YouTube a lot, a little bit about Creative Commons, talked about CCC. One thing that we didn't talk about that I want to leave you with is that documentation. That is absolutely one of the most important things you can do as faculty. The last thing you want to do is end up in your boss's office explaining why you violated copyright. You know, document everything, print out the license from CCC, any kind of email correspondence that you have with the faculty or with the owner of the copyright, anything and everything. I'm super cautious with the documentation portion. So I would hate to have the accreditation, obviously, the accreditation bodies, they can look at that record when you go through the reaffirmation. So, yes.
Oh, I was just gonna add, keep that on file. You know, you
Oh,
need
yeah.
to, look up the table and rules that go towards that and keep
Yeah.
those things on file, because people leave and
That's
and what
right.
have you, and so you may be called to answer for something that was done by somebody who's left, so you might
Yeah.
wanna keep that. I
That's-
don't know what the disposition instructions are for that, but you might wanna get familiar with that as well.
I think for me, in one of my previous lives, I held on to that for about 10 years because that was the length of the SAC COC accreditation. So that's not a hard and fast rule, that's just Jessica's rule, so.
One question in the comments in the chat here. The JA mentioned there's a large copyright gray area, quote unquote, with regards to uploading content to AI. The answer on the gray area is, quote unquote, don't upload it. Is there a plan to have publishers check an AI box going forward, such as A, no AI, B, unrestricted AI use, C, collaborative AI use only among licensed users, RAG only, or other options, D, individual AI usage with license?
We're already starting to see licenses come through that have specific AI provisions. So we've seen a lot that say no AI use. We've seen some that have, you can use this in AI, but it has to be like a closed universe AI and it can't be used for like any sort of like learning. And then I would say we're still in the area where a lot of them don't mention AI at all. And that's where we would just recommend not using it in AI because it's, right, we don't know. And when those licenses came about, they weren't contemplating AI at the time.
Right.
So I would say like we are still working on seeking clarification on that. But for right now, our recommendation is if it says don't use AI or it's silent on AI, then just don't use it in AI. But we are working through trying to get clarification on that. But to answer the question, yes, like we're already starting to see licenses come in that specifically speak to AI and how we can use it.
And I also, to add to that, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe in the Copyright Clearance Center, there's training, I think this week, if I'm not mistaken, on AI and CCC resources. So if you can attend that training, attend it, because that's going to be very useful. They're gonna have to start documenting that somehow in CCC also. So I imagine it's gonna be under the special terms section with AI, or maybe it's so important now that it'll be its own category.
Add to that. So we're actually, with the new Copyright Clearance Center contract, we are investigating what their licensing allows for AI, and they do have a special AI license. And we need to find out what that covers, if that's something that's gonna be beneficial for us to get or not. So that's something that's being explored, because again, it's a new thing.
Okay, great, thank you.
I had another question about, you're gonna go into fair use? I'm
Yes.
sorry, about the CCC.
Yeah.
That only pertains to all the AUL databases, those that we get through the AUL database,
No.
right?
I think it has more in it than just what we have. So, I'm glad you said that though, because if you look for a resource and you don't find it in CCC, then more than likely you're gonna have to go directly to the copyright holder and seek permission to use that resource.
But does that bounce against what we have in?
No, they don't
AUL?
talk, so Triple C doesn't talk to AUL.
So it may have a red dot on there, but it could be for our use.
So, Jess, so if you, let's say you've gone into the library, let's say you have a journal article that you want to use for your course. You've gone into the library resources, we don't have it, it's not available, Creative Commons. Then your next step is to go into Copyright Clearance Center and search for it in there. If you search for it in there, it'll show, if it's green, that means AU has already paid for the license for that and you're good to go. Or if it's got the green with the exclamation point, it's the license with certain stipulations. If it's the red, that means it's not part of that Creative Commons license. Now, you can still, sometimes, or not Creative Commons, sometimes in Copyright Clearance Center, even though it's red, you could still get it, but it's gonna cost an additional amount for that license. And then it'll give you a price, and then you would have to go to your purchase card holder and ask them if you can pay for that, or if they can pay for that. And if it's not in there, that's when Copyright Clearance Center is no longer gonna be useful for that article, and you're gonna have to go directly to the publisher, or maybe to the author, or track down, where you can get those permissions.
Always starting with the AUL databases
Yeah.
and then going, hey, I found something
Yeah.
that's gonna work for my students, but let me double check on my own checklist, I'm gonna have
Yeah.
Triple C.
Exactly,
And we can become part of that in September?
September 30th.
Okay, all right, keep that in mind.
So if you found it in the permalink, you don't have to do the Triple C thing.
Right, that's right.
You're good to go.
No, I'm just, that's permalink, but if I want to distribute the work, I have to go
Permalink,
there, right?
yeah.
No, not permalink.
You mean if you want to distribute it, like say, print it off,
Right, if
or?
we're talking about the
yeah,
actual
PDF.
work, not a permalink, and the actual work.
Correct,
Yeah.
that,
I have to go to T Triple C.
yeah, because
Triple C, whatever.
if it's a library resource, you still would have to get permissions beyond sharing the permalink. Because our licenses don't cover copying and sharing.
Correct, yeah, permalink I'm okay with, but if I
Yes.
wanna do anything else
Yeah.
other than permalink with the actual work, I go to that site.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
So we didn't even really talk about OER resources this afternoon, open educational resources, that's for another conversation probably. But that's another avenue that faculty can use. You might wanna look at University of Kansas, they have a lot of good military-related OER materials to use. Doug, did you have, I think, no?
All right,
Major League.
now,
For fair use,
Yeah.
I know this has come up a lot lately. And like I said, all of the great resources that we've already talked about are opportunities to find things that'll work for your classes and your flights and your seminars before we even get to this. Because fair use comes with a lot of risk. So there's no like per se definition of what fair use is, and the only people who have really the authority to determine what it is the federal courts. So I can give you a legal opinion on if I think something's fair use. It doesn't mean that a judge is going to agree with what I had to say. So these are the 4 factors that are listed in the US code. All of them are, they're all given kind of equal weight and weight against each other. There's no one factor that's determinative. So I think a lot of people look at the first factor and say, well, like the purpose and character of our use is obviously for nonprofit educational. We're the government, we're not making money off of this. We're PME, this is what we're doing. But just because we meet that factor doesn't necessarily mean that the other 3 factors are going to weigh in our favor. I will say, like, I would really, really recommend against relying on this because this is an affirmative defense to a copyright infringement. It is not permission to go use something. So this is, we violated copyright law, somebody sues us, now we're gonna raise this as a defense. And it's, like I said, it comes with a lot of risk, and there's so many other resources available that we can use before we even have to get into this area. And like I said, we could give our opinion at JA, but that doesn't mean that a court is going to necessarily agree with us. Talking through some of the other factors, the nature of the copyrighted work, unpublished works are going to be given more protection. The amount and substantiality of any portion used in relation to the copyrighted work. So the more the more of a book or the more of an article that you use, the more it's gonna weigh in favor of copyright infringement. That being said, like, none of these are determinative, so there was a case where, the more of the meat and potatoes you get out of the book, the more likely it is to be copyright infringement, even if it's only a couple of paragraphs. And then the effect and use upon the potential market or value of the copyrighted work. So if you're copywriting a textbook, it's gonna weigh in favor of copyright infringement, because by copying the textbook, now you're taking away from that company to make money. And they're, if you think of copyright not just as copying the works, but as like somebody's personal property, somebody's livelihood, you're infringing on that company's ability to make money. And I think a lot of the books that we use are written for a certain military strategic level thinking audience. And by copying the works without a license, we're probably infringing on that market. So there's no determinative way for us to say if something is fair use or not. And our recommendation would be to not rely on this exception to try and get to use a copyrighted work, especially when there's so many other resources out there available. This is fraught with legal risk. It's fraught for us to get sued. And like I said, even if we're ultimately successful in the end, we're still gonna have to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of aggravation, a lot of resources on defending our use, when it's something that we have so many other things that we can rely on to drive home the points that y'all are trying to teach in class. So I know that there's been a lot of questions on this, but our recommendation is kind of stay away from it and try and find something else that you can use.
And with that being said, come see us in the library. We'll help you look for resources. That's our job, part of our job, So, and if you have ideas on resources that you all use, let us know, so we can kind of pool our knowledge together. Next, please.
So here's an example from, AFIT has a handbook. I will let you guys read it, but basically there's a chart in a textbook. The chart includes facts. The teacher copies the chart to give to everyone. That is a problem, because now you're taking you're infringing on the copyright of that person, versus if you were to take the facts and just use the facts in class, it would be okay.
To go back to that example, I'm sorry, I'm trying to be into the weeds here. Yeah, I am. He said the expression of those facts may be protected. So we're talking about the concept and not just the words and how it's typed.
So the facts themselves of the melting temperatures are not protected. How they're expressed in the table is protected.
So the actual table itself is protected?
Yes.
Okay. Because that's the problem that we run into, and I'll ask the question at the
end. So this gets to, I know we had a question on the teaching exception earlier. This gets after that. Professor Schmidt downloads a copyrighted image from the internet and displays it in a live class to her students to help illustrate a teaching point. This face-to-face limitation on exclusive rights would potentially permit the display of the image in the classroom, right? Because she is showing it to her class in a live classroom, and not, importantly, she's not making copies, so she's not copying it for everybody to look at. If the initial downloading, however, was not lawful, this authority would not cover the subsequent display, because it would be that secondhand copyright infringement that we've been talking about. However, if she downloaded the image by obtaining, all right, this talks to fair use, we would hope maybe she went to the CCC, or it was in the Creative Commons, or, she had another ability to download it. Then the professor may display the image in her class.
All right, so
Sorry, so just in that case too, then you're kind of getting, again, into the fair use and everything, but also the citation part of it. So then if you cite the picture at the bottom kind of thing, you're still kind of in the gray area of fair use and everything, because at least you cited it properly, but the initial download.
Right, this is the intersect between like copyright law and plagiarism and citations.
Yeah.
they're connected, but they're different. So just because you properly cite something doesn't mean that you're also not violating copyright law. So citing something doesn't cure the illegal copying. Because again, I think it's easier for me to think of it more tangibly, like if I'm physically making a copy instead of buying a book, then that's money that's not going to that author or that company, and like think of it more of like in terms of like theft or stealing. Conceptually, I think it's easier for me to wrap my mind around. I know it's, when copyright came about, we weren't dealing with the internet and YouTube and all of those things, but if you go back to that kind of basic understanding of what copyright is, I have the right to the copies of this book and this product and this thing that I made. And when you copy it without my permission, you're then in effect stealing from me.
Kind of like designs on Etsy. I don't know if you have any crafters in the family, but it's the same concept as designs and drawings in Etsy. All right, next. This is our guide, one of our guides for copyright content that we use for the briefing this afternoon. I feel like we're adding to this. I think Jody will talk a little bit more about these resources. I have one thing left I want to share with you. If you want to take a look, sorry online, but if you want to take a look at these 3 books that I have up here, I bought them. They're on public domain, copyright, and getting permission. So the good news is we also bought them for the library, and everyone has access to them online. So these titles will be added to the slide before we send out the slide deck, if that's okay.
So would you like to hold these up to the camera?
Sure.
Show them off? Sure.
Yeah.
Here's one. Okay.
Is it backwards?
It is for us, but not for everybody else.
Excellent.
And sorry, I'm partly obscuring that with my hand by holding it up. Awkward at best here, but at least you get a quick view of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jody?
Okay, so yeah, these resources will be available. We actually are in the final phases of creating a new copyright LibGuide, and that will hopefully go live soon. We're just waiting to make the final touches on that. Let's go to the next slide. I think it's just more resources. Oh, questions. Do we have any additional questions that haven't been asked yet?
I do. Is there a standardized way of, if you don't find anything that you, that we have the copyright release for, is there a standardized way of getting a copyright, like from a publisher or whoever owns the content that you're trying to use?
There really is not,
Is there a requirement, like I have to get a letter from them stating that I'm
you
gonna
would
use it
need
this way?
something to demonstrate that you got their permission, whether they
Yeah.
give you a letter or if,
Certificate,
let's say you paid
or-
money and they gave you a little invoice and it says, permission to use, you want to have something that clearly shows that you have permission.
And then do I have to state like, I'm gonna use it for this and
Yeah,
how
oh, yeah.
long, and
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
have to set all the boundaries.
Yeah, because they may be willing to let you share it in a live class, but not, on, like, in Blackboard or Canvas.
Yeah.
They may say that's fine for that, but you can't make photocopies. They may say it's fine to make photocopies, but not share electronic. It really depends on the individual publisher and what they wanna allow or not allow.
And do we have to take that then through the JAG office to make sure we're legit?
We do review licenses that, cost money, so I don't think I've seen anywhere it's like if you have to pay for it, we review those licenses and give a legal review. I haven't seen any legal reviews where like the publisher has just been like, oh, okay, you can use it. I think as long as, like, definitely the big thing is to just get it in writing so that, 2 years later, they can't come back and say, you illegally made copies of this, and we don't have anything to prove that we did have permission, even if we did at the time.
There's no standard template, I'm sorry, Doug. There's no standard template letter, and it's up to each individual schoolhouse to manage that on their own. I will say, in this book, I'm not promoting the author at all, but in this book, there are examples of that and advice on doing exactly what you're talking about. So take a look at this book online and you'll find some useful stuff in it. So,
I was just gonna offer, I remember historically, we were utilizing a particular, and I'll abstain from using the name of the model because I could get in trouble for that, right? So, there was a leadership model that we had used for years and years and enlisted PME and we realized that there was some copyright infringement by doing that without getting their permission to utilize that in our coursework. And we went out and got that permission from them, and it was expensive. It was not cheap, and they set forth several limitations on how we could use it, how often to use it, and it was based on a period of time, and we were gonna have to renew that after another period of time, so they were very specific in that.
Now, I would just add to, if a company is letting us use something for free, potentially we have to maybe analyze a gift analysis for that too, if they would normally charge other people to use that work,
how
so.
about you down there, sir?
So my question to you, sir, if you're using that model to not be unnamed full range leadership, right? So if you use that model, are you talking about the work, the actual work from the authors of that model who were not DoD employees at the time, right? Where you got that source, you're talking about the work, not the ideas or the actual work itself, or the ideas?
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but I know that we had to go not only to the publisher that published that work, but also the publisher had to go back to the authors of that because it was a joint authored thing. So, and there was some dispute between these two individuals who co-authored it. I know it gets complicated, complexity. There's a
So-
level of complexity
I
there.
guess my concern, my main question is defining that work. And anytime I can take free legal advice or expert advice, I'll take it. So I'm gonna ask the question. If I can just present the scenario briefly. Let's say I'm writing a lesson and I'm going to have this taught across the different ROTC detachments across OTS, right? So I'll have to send it out or post it on a secret website or government, hosting server so the detachments can pull and download and present that material to their students. So if I'm writing this lesson and I want to use, let's say, this idea of a full range leadership, and I write that into my lesson plan, I am just like I'm writing a term paper. I'm using their ideas in my lesson plan. I'm not using their graphics, their tables. I'm not using their quote original work. And of course, I'm gonna have a reference bibliography. I'm gonna put that at the end, say, I got it from these guys who came up with this model. Am I okay?
I would say it depends.
Yeah, I think it depends, because like,
Have to go back.
are you using their specific, model that they came up with, or are
Yeah.
you using general leadership principles?
I would be using
Yeah,
the concept and the ideas that they came up with.
yeah, then if you're using their,
I don't know, man, I'm not-
Intellectual property.
yeah,
It goes back to what you were saying earlier to me about you using all the meat
yeah,
of what it is.
I'm gonna give
But
you
it's
the
not
word.
the original work, right? And I understand the difference there, but it's the concept of what is in the original work. If I'm using that, just like I would a term paper, right? I mean, when I used in school, I never had to copy any or contact any publisher. I just cited at the end of my work.
I would say,
Because that accounts for all of our products, and that's our biggest concern, because otherwise we have to use either DoD resources or other government resources, or have to get the copyright permissions. That's just not practical.
I would say it kind of depends. In my experience, like usually we're taught certain leadership models that we read and go off of in class that we've gotten the permissions for, through the schoolhouses that.
Maybe not a model, maybe just information that was written in an article.
Well, if it's a fact,
Yeah,
that's not copyrightable, but that's,
Yeah, it depends on
They're gonna
how
be ideas of someone else.
ideas,
It was probably derived from some leadership or I'm sorry, some research that was conducted by this person or group. And, that the results of their research are probably copyrighted. And so you're gonna have to probably seek release from those folks that authored that material. I would at least say that would be a safe thing to go.
Even though I'm not distributing
I
them.
think the more creative and the more individual the model becomes, the more likely you're getting into danger, the more generalized it is, the more kind of fact-based it is, you're probably more likely to be in the green. It's hard to give a definitive answer without a
And that's the
concrete
problem we run into.
Derivative works are a part of that copyright too, so,
What's the
it's.
definition of derivative work?
That's a good question.
Jack?
But
Again, this is the problem we have, because all of our work comes from, I did not invent leadership, right? I gotta get it from somewhere, and there's too much goodness outside of the government to not use that in our curriculum.
And you can use it in the curriculum.
Yes. That's exactly what I'm referring to.
So there's a ton of different ways to do that. If you're sharing permalinks, if we have a license for it, if we purchase the license for it. So it's not saying like, you can't use this stuff. It's just saying you have to use it in a lawful way.
But me writing a text or writing a narrative and including that in my writing, hey, I'm referencing Bob and Tom who came up with this leadership model. I should be able to do that as a writer.
Yes. I will say copyright and plagiarism overlap, but
Sure.
they're separate concepts. So it gets kind of complicated and murky in there. But if you have a specific question, please let me know. They're
Exactly
connected but distinct concepts. So you can't just because you cite something doesn't mean that you are clear for the copyright issue.
I don't know, what I'm hearing you say is like, I read a book a year or two ago. I learned the book stuff. I've not touched the book since. I'm now writing a lesson and taking stuff out of my head, putting them on the paper. I'm still infringing on their copyright at that point.
If you're
It's not
referring
yours. You didn't
to
come up
their
with it.
model
Nope,
that.
I learned this
Yeah.
model from their book 2 years ago. I haven't touched it since. I don't have it in front of me when I'm writing it.
But are you recreating it, right? Like, are you
You're
in effect copying their model?
recreating their idea, their concept, their model. You're not,
They created this model, and yes, it happens to be in a book, but it's a model. And you're using that model. You're not using the book, you're using the model.
but it's still there. I get that part. It's still theirs. But I need to know where the line in the sand is. Otherwise, I'm just making up random stuff and teaching random things. I
Right.
need to get this from subject matter experts out in the field that write about this stuff. And I can't always look at the DOD and government as my source. Like when I write a term paper, right, I'm wherever I can, and I of course reference.
I mean, if you cited somebody that writes a paper on leadership, and they cite the full range leadership model, or whatever model you wanna do, all of a sudden, you're using their model, do you then have to, because even though you're citing their paper, you learn all this stuff from all these secondary sources, but then you gotta go back to whomever, and
Can you
get
touch, like,
copyright
the
from
second
them.
or third slide? The one that
How far
talks
back?
about, early on, probably like the one that talks about what is copyright.
So if it is derivative work,
Yeah.
I think that's the key.
It's
What is
complicated, and
copyright?
I think what's complicated about leadership and specifically is that it's kind of mushy versus like, we can talk about science, like this is a fact for sure, this is an idea, right? It's easier to delineate.
It could be any,
Yeah.
any topic, any soft skill, I mean, for that matter.
I don't think we can resolve all of these issues
Yeah.
during our presentation here probably today.
I
Probably
understand that.
an opportunity for follow-on discussions with the people
Yeah.
that make this their profession. So,
And speak more to specific.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely happy to look into your question more and
Please,
talk
let's do
offline.
that. Absolutely.
If you would like to shoot me an email, can you go one slide forward? Yeah.
of course, this one.
Yeah, so this is. Yeah, if you're,
He's creating original work using this idea.
that he got from somebody else.
Right.
But then if you follow down that route, no ideas are original, except
Right.
unless you go back 2,000 years ago to somebody in Greece or whatever.
Right.
I think,
But they're not copyrighted.
yeah,
They're
say,
in the public domain.
facts and ideas typically aren't copyrightable, their presentation is. So I think it depends on how you are presenting it and how you're using it. But so I think this is probably worthy of an
Absolutely, I
offline
appreciate that.
conversation.
Good.
Did we have any other online questions, Justin?
And I will say, the more creative something gets, the more likely you're in copyright, the more kind of generic it is, the more
What do you mean by more creative
Like-
that I write?
yeah, like the more creative a work is, the more original a work is, the more likely you are to get into copyright issues versus the more kind of generic, just like fact-based
Yeah,
something
okay,
is.
yeah.
It's hard to, I know, I'm not getting satisfying answers. It's hard because so much depends.
She had a question.
I'm sorry, I just need something clarified. When do I need to consider copyright issues? So I got a list. I just want to show my class a picture or article in a PowerPoint presentation.
There's layers to that. So
Okay.
I think that kind of goes to the second example we did where the person was probably, if they were legally downloaded and obtained a copy of the picture, then they are probably okay to share it in the class under the teaching exception. But you can get into trouble, everything's fact specific. So you can get into trouble if you are like downloading the picture in some sort of secondhand copyright infringement and then showing the picture versus like, and then are you just showing it to your class on like a PowerPoint, or are you making
Yeah.
copies? Are you distributing that PowerPoint to the
That was the
class?
second thing.
Yeah.
Because in a testing situation, I want to show an article and have them talk about the article. Is that under?
Right, if you're making copies of the article to show them in the test, now you've made copies, you haven't just displayed it.
What if I'm having them look at a video for homework to make comments on it?
I would recommend exploring the permalink option, so, don't download the video, don't upload the video, give them the link.
Let them do it.
I can give them the link.
Sir,
So if the student is making a presentation and they've downloaded a potentially illegal source, and then they're showing that to they're teaching everybody via this presentation.
yeah.
Who's in violation of the copyright at that point?
Probably the student.
Yeah.
The institution.
So do we have to start teaching our students copyright law now?
They should-
Before-
So every person at Air University should have a basic understanding of copyright, period. It doesn't have to, we don't have to be experts in the matter, but we do need to be aware of things to look out for. So yeah, I would say, yeah, they should know.
So
Students
the
should know about
students
copyright.
should know?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is a copyright lesson at the start of any of our schools on this, to the students on,
That would be something to look into at the headquarters level, I would imagine, but I'm not in that kind of position to make that statement locally. Oh, yeah.
Disclaimer, but no.
Yeah, that's something to work towards, definitely.
yeah, the thing I'm worrying about at this point is one of the things that makes laws bad laws is that no one follows them.
That's right,
Right.
that's right,
I mean, if you put a law in place that's going to encourage law breaking,
yeah.
it's a bad law.
I would say, this is, right, when copyright was invented, or no, it was not invented, when it was enacted, there's, we were dealing with books, right? We weren't dealing with computers and the internet and downloading and uploading videos and entering stuff into ChatGPT.
Right.
So, yeah, sometimes it is, as technology develops, trying to put a square peg into a round hole. This
We're in
is,
that period right
yeah.
now.
this is the status of the law that we have right now. So this is what we have to work with.
Then my question to you is, I mean, given AU's place, I mean, we are DOD institution, but we are also academic institution as well. So how much academic freedom can we exercise from legal standpoint?
That's a question.
In terms of like discussing things in the
Because
past.
academic freedom, I mean, obviously there's more flexibility. So we are a DOD institution with academic mission.
Yes.
So, I mean, it comes to identity. I know it's kind of, a vague gray area, but from legal, standpoint, how much is allowed for us? There's all these questions that I'm sitting here and.
Not much, I would say, because fair use, we have to be so conservative with fair use.
Academic freedom really talks about discussions
Yeah, classroom.
and making
Yeah.
points, not using copyrighted work. I think we're okay with academic freedom.
Yeah. I mean, even, I think somebody mentioned about using PowerPoint, what to include, what not.
Yeah.
We can talk offline, but yeah, I understand academic freedom as more of a policy of, a non-attribution of like, we want freedom of discussion in the classroom, so we're not going to, within certain contexts, we're not going to attribute what you say to you so that we can have those free discussions in the classroom and learn. In terms of what you can put on PowerPoints, it goes back to.
What's legally allowed, I mean, some people, some companies won't let you put photographs in PowerPoints. Like that Foreign Affairs magazine that we looked at, they were really strict with using their photographs. It's the same concept. You have to be very careful. Sometimes you just can't use the photographs in PowerPoints. There's not a black and white answer for any of this, honestly.
Right, and that's another quirk of that kind of thing is,
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't use it. If a publisher or if an author has stopped their work from being available,
Yeah.
then you just can't use it. And even if you find a bootleg version of it, well,
Don't use it.
but I need to use it, and the only way I can get it, the only way it's available is through this bootleg version. It doesn't matter. You're not entitled to use a work if the original author has stopped distributing it and stopped making it
Or
available and
publisher.
stop, or publisher, right? So you just can't.
Maybe I was coming from, in terms of material development, I can see, we have more copyright restrictions. But, as somebody mentioned about using PowerPoint, for example, when we have classroom discussions or presentations, we have to use some kind of tool, just like what we are using now.
Yeah.
So how much is allowed even, when we are presenting?
That really depends.
Because we need some kind of a tool for discussion, or to pursue.
Yeah.
Academic,
I would say it depends on the subject matter, it depends on licensing, it depends on so many different factors.
Attribution,
Yeah.
giving attribution to the source and the author of that material. It has to do with not just stating it, but how are you attributing it to the person that it came from?
That's fair.
So how are you citing that? That could be all that is needed. Sometimes that's all that they require. As long as you cite where you got this, you're good to use it, but it's all very situational.
And is what you're citing, is it in the public domain? Is it
Creative
joint?
Commons.
Yeah, is it Creative Commons? Like, you can show a YouTube, it's not that you can't show YouTube at all in classes, it's just that you have to have the right permissions to show a YouTube video. So go on YouTube, search Creative Commons, and what's available to there, you're probably, and I can't say definitely, but you're probably okay to show those videos. Probably even, you can share links. Is it in the public domain? Is it government, something that the government produced that you're able to put up there? So it's not saying that you guys can't show or do anything. It's just that you have to go in with the assumption that it's copyrighted and then figure out if you have the appropriate license and permissions to use that, to make that copy and use that material.
So then you can't necessarily use the terms of that website as a fallback to say, oh, well, I read in fine print that they say that I can use this because I'm a schoolhouse. So then I can just use whatever I want to use.
I mean, it would depend on, it would depend on what the language said. If you're on a specific website and it's like public domain marked, or, they say you can use it, then yeah, you're probably okay.
Sir, you have a question?
So what is the academic exception to this? Because I mean, a student using whatever they're using in a presentation, for example, their intent is not to make money from it.
Right.
They're doing it in an academic environment, they just want an A.
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, I get like, you made a copy of it, but usually isn't the part of the reason why it's a potential problem is that you're intending to derive income from it. Isn't that usually where you end up getting kind of in trouble too? With copyright?
That is a factor, but it's also if you go to the four fair use factors, are you doing it for an income driven activity, but also are you taking away from the market?
Let's say this author or collaborative group, this company created a leadership model. Well, not only did they publish it in a book or a manual or whatever, but they go around the country and they're doing workshops and they have copyrighted their workshops. And so when you teach their stuff, you're taking money out of their pocket because they would potentially come to your organization to teach their model. Does that make sense? Is that getting to what you're saying?
Yeah, it's hard. So I think you're right. We could have an offline conversation.
I don't think we're ever going to settle this. Not that I think you're wrong or anything, I just,
No,
we would kind of get to the ad absurdum at some point.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's definitely, it's not an easy area of the law to digest, and it doesn't, some of the issues don't necessarily fit into how this law was developed half a century ago.
The Copyright Act happened in 1976. So think of how far we've come over these past, 3-4 decades, well, 5 decades, whatever, however long.
49 years.
There you go, thank you for that. Good thing I'm not a mathematician. So 1976 is a really long time to use the same law. Things change, and copyright, it's evolving. So, anyhow.
Well, isn't there also an update to that under the Digital Rights?
Yeah, Digital Rights Act of.
That's the update.
2000?
It's hitting
Is
the electronic side.
Yeah.
It's trying to take the early version and it's putting it into the modern terms. So, which is another topic.
No, yeah, right.